415, 000 Ivan Al NWFL, 2,004,314, 200,004 Francis FL, 200,428, 900,005 Hugo SC, 198,947, 006 Jean FL, 200,436, 900,007 Allison NTX, 2001 TS 5,000,008 Floyd Mid-Atlantic Noi. S. 199,924, 500,009 Isabel Mid-Atlantic 200,323, 370,010 Fran NC 199,633, 200,011 Opel NWFL AL 199,533, 000 12 Frederick Al per Mega Siemens 197,932, 300,013 Agnes FL Noi. S. 197,212, 100,014 Alicia NTX 198,332, 000 15 Bob NC Noi. S. 199,121, 500,015 Juan LA 198,511, 500,017 Camille MS Sella VA 196,951, 420,700,018 Betsy SEFL Sella 196,531, 420,500,019 Elena MS Al NWFL 198,531, 250,020 Georges FL Keys per Mega Siemens Al 199,821, 155,021 Gloria Eastern U. S. 19,853,900, 000 22 Lily SC LA 20,021,860, 000 23 Diane Noi. S. 19,551,831, 700,024 Bonnie NCVA 19,982,720, 000 25 Aaron NWFL 19,982,700, 000 26 Allison NTX 1989 TS 500,026 Alberto NWFL GA Al 1994 TS 500,026 Francis TX 1998 TS 500,029 Eloise NWFL 19,753,490, 000 30 Carol Noi. S. 19,543,461, 000 Source. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration NOAA. HURRICANEANDREW 1992, prior to Katrina, Hurricane Andrew was the most destructive storm to hit the United States. Like most Atlantic hurricanes, it started as a tropical wave from the coast of Africa. After its birth on August 14, it then became a tropical depression and morphed into Tropical Storm Andrew 3 days later. Figure 6.1 shows its path through Florida and into Louisiana. 88. Natural disasters. Figure 6.1 Path of Hurricane Andrew Source. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration NOAA. The National Hurricane Center (NHC) describes Andrew's progression. www.nhc.noaa.gov/ha2/english/history. Printer. SHTML #Andrew. Further development was slow, as the west-northwestward moving Andrew encountered an unfavorable upper-level trough. Indeed, the storm almost dissipated on August 20 due to vertical wind shear. By August 21, Andrew was midway between Bermuda and Puerto Rico and turning westward into a more favorable environment. Rapid strengthening occurred, with Andrew reaching hurricane strength on the 22nd and Category 4 status on the 23rd. After briefly weakening over the Bahamas, Andrew regained Category 4 status as it blasted its way across South Florida on August 24. The hurricane continued westward into the Gulf of Mexico where it gradually turned. Hurricanes. 89. Northward. This motion brought Andrew to the central Louisiana coast on August 26 as a Category 3 hurricane. Andrew then turned northeastward, eventually merging with a frontal system over the mid-Atlantic states on August 28. Andrew caused 26 deaths and $26.5 billion in damage. Unusual for a hurricane, most of the damage was done by high winds and not flooding caused by flash flooding or storm surge. The NHC lists the 4 most dangerous elements of a hurricane in this order. 1. Flash flooding inland. 2. Storm surge. 3. High winds. 4. Tornadoes. Usually, when we think of winners and losers from a hurricane, we compare at the Minto groups by who got hurt, who has to pay, and what commodity became scarce. With that in mind, let's run through the losers. First, we have all the people in the storm's path. Next, we have the insurance companies that people have policies with that must pay out to cover the costs inflicted by the storms. Let's take a look at what happened to the Nasdaq Insurance Index in August of 1992. This is a capitalization-weighted index designed to measure the performance of all Nasdaq stocks in the insurance sector. In Figure 6.2, we can see the index tanked over the time frame that Hurricane Andrew developed and whacked Florida. The insurance industry in Florida was devastated by the incursion of $16 billion in insured losses. It forced the state legislature to create the Florida Hurricane Catastrophe Fund to help insurance companies in the event of another catastrophe and to encourage them to keep offering insurance in the state. Homebuilders were not initially seen as potential beneficiaries from a hurricane, and their stock prices fell initially. After October 1992, companies like Centex, CTX, Figure 6.3 saw their stock prices rise steadily after the market realized builders would be doing big business rebuilding in Florida. The initial reaction had been to sell shares in home builders as the market believed that any homes those companies were currently building in the region would be damaged. The stock prices began to rise in late September. 3 commodities had a particularly strong run associated with Andrew: oil, natural gas, and lumber. Using the generic code for lumber LB1 on Bloomberg, we see a big spike in lumber from mid-August through early September, Figure 6.4. But you had to be quick to take profits, as the price reversed almost as quickly. 90. Natural disasters. Figure 6.2 1992 Nasdaq Insurance Index source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Figure 6.3 1992 Centex. Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Hurricanes. 91. Figure 6.4 1992 Lumber. Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Oil, CL1, experienced a similar pattern with a rally that started in August, but faded in October, Figure 6.5. Natural gas, NG1, had a similar trading pattern, Figure 6.6. All 3 commodities experienced short-term pops to the upside followed by reversals within 2 months. Lumber was the only one of the 3 that followed the pattern but ended the year significantly higher from August. For the major indexes, Hurricane Andrew contributed to a new low for the Dow Jones Industrial Average (INDX), Figure 6.7, a new low for the US Dollar Index DXY-INDX, Figure 6.8, and a new low for the yield on the U.S. Treasury 10-year bond USGG10YRINDX, Figure 6.9. As with the commodities, the price action was temporary and later unwound. The temporary nature of the negative impact from Hurricane Andrew stems from the markets taking some time to digest a new phenomenon and what would be the implications for the economy afterward. Initially seen as a disaster, Andrew's impact was subsequently viewed as a net zero impact as the rebuilding of the areas devastated offset the devastation. Hurricanes Charley and Ivan, 2004. Since these storms hit within a month of each other, we'll consider them in tandem as their impacts can't be separated from each other. They're unusual. 92. Natural disasters. Figure 6.5 1992 Crude. Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Figure 6.6 1992 Natural gas. Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Hurricanes. 93. Figure 6.7 1992 Dow Jones Industrial Average. Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Figure 6.8 1992 U.S. Dollar Index. Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. 94. Natural disasters. Figure 6.9 1992 U.S. 10-year bond yield. Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Behavior underscores why the serious trader must understand their nature when analyzing hurricanes. Just like my kids, they don't always do what is expected or predicted. This is why I list the entire description to show how each storm follows a unique path. Let's start with the NHC's description and diagram of Charley. Figure 6.10 shows its path from Jamaica over Cuba, where it weakened temporarily, a familiar pattern for hurricanes as they pass over land. From the NHC website www.nhc.noaa.gov/hot2/English/history. Printer. SHTML #Charlie. Charlie then came under the influence of an unseasonably strong mid-tropospheric trough that had dropped from the east-central United States into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. The hurricane turned north-northeastward and accelerated toward the southwest coast of Florida as it began to intensify rapidly. By 10 a.m., the maximum winds had increased to near 125 meters p.h., and 3 hours later had increased to 145 meters p.h., Category 4 strength. Charlie made landfall with maximum winds near 150 meters p.h. on the southwest coast of Florida just north of Captiva Island around 3:45 p.m. An hour later, Charlie's eye passed over Punta Gorda. The hurricane then crossed. Hurricanes. 95. Figure 6.10 Path of Hurricane Charlie. Source: National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA). Central Florida, passing near Kissimmee and Orlando. Charlie was still of hurricane intensity around midnight when its center cleared the northeast coast of Florida near Daytona Beach. After moving into the Atlantic, Charlie came ashore again near Cape Roman, South Carolina, near midday on the 14th as a Category 1 hurricane. The center then moved just offshore before making a final landfall at North Myrtle Beach. Charlie soon weakened to a tropical storm over southeastern North Carolina and became extratropical on the 15th as it moved back over water near Virginia Beach. This was a compact storm by most standards, as the maximum winds and storm surge extended only 7 miles from the eye. However, the winds crushed 2 cities, Punta Gorda and Port Charlotte. Hurricane Charlie. 96. Natural disasters. Produced 16 tornadoes from Florida to North Carolina to Virginia. Charlie also produced 15 deaths and $15 billion in damages. Now, let's turn to Hurricane Ivan. As you'll see, this storm quickly followed on the heels of Charlie, representing the worst-case scenario for a series of storms. This pattern would be followed in 2005 with a similar time frame and devastating results. To use a cliché, it's literally a 1-2 punch. From the National Hurricane Center (NHC) www.nhc.noaa.gov/hot2/English history. Printer. SHTML #Ivan. Hurricane Ivan began developing only 16 days after Charlie left the United States. Its path was similar in the Caribbean. By the 5th, Ivan had become a hurricane about 1,150 miles east of the southern Windward Islands. 18 hours later Ivan became the southernmost storm to reach major hurricane status, at 10.2 N. Ivan was a Category 3 hurricane when the center passed about 7 miles south of Grenada, a path that took the northern eyewall of Ivan directly over the island. In the Caribbean, Ivan became a Category 5 hurricane, with winds of 160 meters p.h. on the 9th when it was south of the Dominican Republic, and on 2 occasions the minimum pressure fell to 910 mb. The center of Ivan passed within about 20 miles of Jamaica on the 11th and a similar distance from Grand Cayman on the 12th, with Grand Cayman likely experiencing sustained winds of Category 4 strength. Ivan then turned to the northwest and passed through the Yucatan Channel on the 14th, bringing hurricane conditions to extreme western Cuba. Ivan moved across the east-central Gulf of Mexico, making landfall as a major hurricane with sustained winds of near 120 meters p.h. on the 16th just west of Gulf Shores, Alabama. Ivan weakened as it moved inland, producing over 100 tornadoes and heavy rains across much of the southeastern United States, before merging with a frontal system over the Delmarva Peninsula on the 18th. While this would normally be the end of the story, the extratropical remnant low of Ivan split off from the frontal system and drifted southward in the western Atlantic for several days, crossed southern Florida, and re-entered the Gulf of Mexico on the 21st. The low reacquired tropical characteristics, becoming a tropical storm for the second time on the 22nd in the central Gulf. Ivan weakened before it made its final landfall in southwestern Louisiana as a tropical depression on the 24th. So not only was Hurricane Ivan a Category 5 storm, but it was so nasty that landfall couldn't kill it. It reformed and looped back down the eastern seaboard to finally end up in Louisiana. Nature can do some pretty hurricanes. 97. Figure 6.11 Dow Jones Industrial Average Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Weird things, and this is a perfect example of how limited science can be in predicting what can happen with weather. Like Charley, Ivan generated damage estimated to be near $14.2 billion. However, it was far more deadly, as the death toll in the United States, Grenada, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Cayman Islands, Tobago, and Barbados reached 92. NOAA said that the storm surge completely overwashed the island of Grand Cayman, where an estimated 95% of the buildings were damaged or destroyed. That's one nasty storm. For the financial markets, let's look at the big indexes first. Try to keep in mind that we were in the home stretch for the 2004 presidential election during these storms. Also unusual was that hurricanes Charley and Ivan happened just 1 month apart. Therefore, Ivan shortened recoil in the markets from Charley and extended the direction. Charley hit on a weekend, so there was some concern heading into Friday about the storm. The Dow put in its lows for the month on Friday, August 13, figure 6.11. It rallied for about a month before Ivan hit. Then it gave back all of that ground and put in new lows for the year. The U.S. Treasury 10-year notes yield was declining prior to Charley and had a big drop just before the storm hit, figure 6.12. The yield dropped from 4.40% in the beginning of August to a low of 4.00% after. 98. Natural disasters. Figure 6.12 U.S. Treasury 10-year note yield source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Ivan hit. The U.S. dollar index exhibited a similar trading pattern, as it was sinking when Charley hit, rebounded partially, then sank again after Ivan hit, figure 6.13. Unlike the Dow and the 10-year Treasury note, the buck kept going south the rest of the year. The broader point to see here is that the macro trends that were in place prior to the storms were given asteroid boost by the damage, but about a month afterward their negative impact diminished for equities and bonds. Next up, commodities. Here's where things get a little strange. First, lumber didn't have the rally that we would normally assume would happen during a rebuilding in the wake of two nasty storms like Charley and Ivan. When Charley hit, lumberily das we would expect, figure 6.14. However, as Ivan was forming and hitting, lumber collapsed. This could have been caused by the U.S. Federal Reserve moving away from the 1% federal funds rate and raising interest rates, figure 6.15, which would hurt housing and builders. The energy side saw the biggest and most sustained moves. Oil rallied going into the beginning of August and backed off after Charley made landfall. Then it started a step climb from when Ivan hit that lasted almost 2 months, figure 6.16. This was occurring as Nigerian rebels were hitting oil platforms and the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Hurricanes. 99. Figure 6.13 U.S. dollar index source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Figure 6.14 lumber. Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. 100. Natural disasters. Figure 6.15 federal funds target rate source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Figure 6.16 crude oil. Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Hurricanes. 101. Figure 6.17 natural gas. Source, used with permission from Bloomberg LP. Was saying that it was essentially powerless to stop the rise in the price of crude oil. Subsequently backed off and finished the year at the levels from the beginning of the storms. Natural gas was just insane. Take a look at its price pattern in figure 6.17. It fell from the time Charley hit until the time that Ivan hit. Then it went crazy and had rallied almost 100% by the end of October. It then collapsed back to the gap that was created when it exploded to the upside. To sum up, the storms created the environment for volatility.